So one of the things we found about drifting when we were developing it is that, you know, a lot of drifting that's been done in the past has been done at relatively slow speeds, you know, 30, 40 mile an hour sort of speeds. When we were out doing research in our game, we do go out to a lot of race events, so we went down to one of the Formula D drift stuff. No, it was Formula D because, you know, we're Need for Speed and we sponsored it, so we get to go down and play with them. But we had our guys out in the cars, and the track that we actually ended up on was an old stock car oval track with a banked corner on it. So the guys were launching into the corner at 90 miles an hour and then putting the car sideways. And so we had a new experience and a new sensation of what is it like to actually drift your car sideways at 90 miles an hour, and it was an insane experience.
Sounds more like you found religion.
Yeah. So it's about bringing all the best guys. It's about competing at a really high level of street racing in these new showdowns that we're creating in the game. They're a multidisciplinary race weekend where people come to a location. It might be a real track. It might be a real-world inspired location that's synonymous with street racing to prove who's the best across multiple race events, right? So there's grip racing and there's drift. Another cool mode that we have this year is Speed Challenge, which is all about driving your car at insanely high speeds over distance, right? So at these showdowns, you get to prove how well you can build cars for each of the modes and then how well you can drive them. So the other mode we're bringing back this year is drag. We're bringing it back a little bit more in a traditional form. You know, we're taking it on the track.
Why did it get killed in Carbon? Because it was like one of the coolest things in the Underground games. It was the one everyone loved.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we always look to provide fresh experiences. So sometimes when we're looking at building the game, we determine, well, this mode doesn't fit as well. We want to focus on, for Carbon, canyon racing, right? So to have enough time to focus and build out the right canyon racing experience, we decided to, for that year, not focus on drag racing in the game. You know, so this year we're bringing it back, and we're bringing it back in a different way. You're going to find out what it's really like to hook up an 800 horsepower car off the line and how actually violent and raw of an experience that is. You know, we have lots of cool features in the game around our smoke, and our audio is always very good. It's going to really pay back that experience. You know, one of the things we haven't talked a lot about is that as we did this 2-year development of this game, one of the things we focused on right out of the gate was building this new drive experience. And so for us, that meant a significant rewrite of our physics engine. Completely redesigning it, rethinking it from the ground up for next-gen consoles. And part of that is the grip model of the cars and everything else that goes into that. But in the end, we want it to be fun, right? So it needs to play like a game and have an accessibility for our consumers. You know, we're a mass consumer game, right? We're not trying to build a niche target product for, you know, people that are really fond of NHRA drag racing.
So it's get the feel right by making it gamey, but not make it necessarily an accurate simulation.
Yeah, I mean, we started with, from the ground up, building an accurate representation of the cars. We, you know, very early on, we have a lot of good partnerships out there with the car manufacturers, and we sent a team over to see our partners at Porsche. And we actually got out in the test facility at Leipzig. Some of our physics engineers went over there and worked hand in hand with their guys recording telemetry data of real-world cars racing around their tracks. And so now the fun part is turning that into a game, right? Capturing the essence of what these cars are like and getting it in people's hands so that they can still drive it around. Because I know, as much as my ego would like to say, I probably can't really drive a 1,000 horsepower drag car with any sort of skill.
So you got to find the line between game and simulation. I mean, are you still leaning more? Because it looks, from everything you've said about it so far, that it's going to be a lot more touching in Forza Gran Turismo territory than in Burnout territory.
internally we don't think of it as we're going towards Forza or we're going towards Burnout, simulation and arcade. We're really trying to carve out for ourselves a new driving experience that we think we can deliver on the next gen consoles. That's about the raw, intense experience of driving these high horsepower cars right to the limit. So it's about the audio, it's about the feedback of the grip, it's about the smoke, it's about the consequence that happens when you're driving around the track. So, one of the things that we have in our game is damage, right? And our damage system is very different in that, we have the benefit of having the auto sculpt system, which is very cool, and our consumers love it. It's, build the car to look the way you want, right? So it's all about personal customization. But when we went to build damage, you can't build damage for a car if you don't know what it looks like. One of the first things that we did when we wanted to put damage in our game is we called up Burnout, right? Because obviously they've done damage for years and we haven't. Yeah, they've done a little bit of damage. What we found was what they did wasn't really fitting for what we did, because they did the really over-the-top Hollywood, non-realistic type of damage. And that's not what we were looking for our game, so we had to go and investigate a whole new area. Plus, with our customization and auto sculpt, their system wouldn't work for us. Right. So very early on, after looking at the traditional ways of doing it, we realized, no, we're going to have to go fully procedural and figure out how to make that work. So one of the things that seems funny, and I know people kind of laugh at me, at our own marketing team, David actually mocked me.
Heartless marketing.
They are.
About smoke? So you mocked him about tire smoke?
So
said that you were blowing smoke up their ass? Was that it?
Well, two things we wanted to focus on that were new was damage, which everybody got right away. It's one of the top requested features from consumers year over year of us. But the other one, which was smoke, and people were like, well, that's kind of okay. It's tire smoke, cool, whatever. But for us, it's a lot about grounding that car to the ground, like making it feel like it's connected to the ground. And the one truism I found with people that like cars or people that drive cars is the first thing they ever want to do when they get in a really high horsepower car is burn out those tires. Because there's something emotionally satisfying about lighting up those tires and seeing the smoke pull off the back end. Especially, you were talking about drifting earlier. I mean, what's drifting without massive amounts of tire smoke, right? It doesn't look like drifting. Your car is going to look like it's skidding around the road, right? And it actually helps feed back to the player of how much are they spinning their tires.
It sounds a lot like what you're wanting to create. That someone can pick up and play and get the feel of playing a simulation game, but doesn't have the Gran Turismo or Forza effect of getting in a really high-powered car and not being able to keep it off the wall.
Yeah, I mean, those are two of the goals of the game, right? Is to have that raw experience of driving high horsepower cars, but yet have it be accessible so I can hand the controller to my son at home and he's not just banging off the wall.
Because the early Need for Speeds were kind of, especially the first one, was more focused on that. That and Porsche Unleashed were a lot more sim focused, and then it shifted over the years as to what the focus of the franchise is. It was very simmy, then it got progressively more game-like, and then it got like really game-like, and then you're trying to sort of pull it back to the original idea.
Every year we sit down and figure out what's the experience that we want to have for people in our game, and from different years we focus on different elements, right? So in the Underground series, we really looked at bringing car customization and personalization to the forefront in the whole street racing culture. And so we started the franchise heading in a direction along there. Most Wanted came along, we decided we really wanted to go after the open world exploration with the cops and that whole very aggressive style of gameplay that comes out of playing with the cops. And as we went into this, we're just heading in a different direction. I think that's something you'll see the franchise over the years will change and readjust its position and adapt to what we think is interesting inside of the car and street racing culture.
So you're pulling it away from the more narrative-driven stuff as well? Because, there were stories to the... You always grin at me when I say this because I hate it so much.
Well, that's why I agree. I've read your comments about our stories in the past, John. It's a love-hate relationship with our consumers and our critics about the stories in our game. The thing that's important to us in our game is that there's a motivation, right? So a key component of making a game accessible for the general public is having a reason to play, other than just there's a big bunch of races here for me to go and race and challenge myself against. So we definitely have a story. The difference is that we're not using our live actor.
No Delroy Lindo?
No Delroy.
Aw.
I know he calls, and he still comes over every once in a while, but he's not in this year's game. Not to say he won't maybe come back another time, but